Hello everyone, it is of course Mateer here, welcoming you to sit down with me and have a very one-sided discussion. Now I recently played through Breath of the Wild. I enjoyed it, although I had a lot of things I didn't like about the game. One of the things being the weapon system. I find it really tedious to hunt for 900 of these godforsaken Korok seeds. But another big thing about this game that I don't like is Calamity Ganon. He had so much potential. He is a pure form of rage, but he's so easy and pathetic. His design is awful. You fight his final form in Hyrule Field, where he just stands there, not menacingly, and just takes light arrows like it's nobody's business. Needless to say, I don't think too highly of this particular form of Ganon. However, it did get me thinking about why I was disappointed. And here's the thing. Just before I played Breath of the Wild, I replayed Ocarina of Time again, and well, let me just show you Ganon. A final one-on-one stand against evil in its purest form, your weapon removed and surrounded by a wall of flames and a thunderstorm manifest by dark forces. And I know you can see him pretty clearly nowadays, but on the N64 with the old-ass box TV, all you could see were his eyes, with the occasional lightning strike telling you where he's at. As a kid, having the Master Sword removed from me was a huge deal. The weapon I grew to rely on the most, even after getting the Big Goron sword. The only blade that could deal the final blow was just knocked out of your hand as if it were meaningless to his power, and the swelling of music as it pounds into your head that you're insignificant compared to him. That is how you build atmosphere for a fucking final boss fight. You make the player's journey feel worthwhile. All the other final bosses from the Zelda series lack that one major element, the feeling of insignificance. I'm an outspoken critic of Ocarina of Time, but I will not deny its way of setting up atmosphere. It is amazing at doing that, and my praises for this boss mainly come down to that fact. The fight itself is actually easy, so why do you not like Calamity Ganon, Jeremy? Here's the thing, it lacks any sort of tension, as the checkpoint is literally right outside the boss room. You can leave the area and prepare again in case you died in a way that you weren't prepared for. Calamity Ganon had to be balanced enough to be able to be killed with nothing but starting game weapons, which makes him pathetically easy. And just look at him. He's not intimidating in the slightest. He's just a Darth Maul spider thing. Well, surely something doesn't have to be intimidating and brimming with atmosphere to be good. You're right. Sometimes the character of Ganondorf is enough to give the battle the tension it needs. Wind Waker Ganondorf is my favorite Ganondorf because it's the only Ganondorf that has a character. He's learned from his mistakes. He doesn't even want to kill Link, a thing that we haven't seen since this game. We got a villain in Zelda that had an actual motivation as to why he wanted the power of the gods. He was pissed at them for the terrible condition of Gerudo Desert. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing, death. But the winds that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose. It gives an introspective into Ganon as a person that provides the tension needed for the final boss fight, as if Hyrule literally drowning around you isn't enough. to the topic at hand, if we go down the checklist of what makes a good final boss fight, you can see that Calamity Ganon is missing everything. It lacks intimidation, tension, atmosphere, the feeling of insignificance. Generally with Zelda games, this usually isn't an issue. Ganondorf from Twilight is missing everything but atmosphere. Calamity Ganon just doesn't work. I piss my pants every time I hear. Wait, what? Where is it? That simple musical cue is scarier than anything Calamity Ganon could ever be. It's also not helpful that I don't care that much for this particular link and only hope that in the future there's another game set in this same timeline so they can throw a dating option in there so I can slide into pay as DMs. Going back to Ganon, Ganon in Breath of the Wild is just hurtful. The whole game you have been pounded into your brain that Calamity Ganon is the end of Hyrule as we know it, and you could literally beat him with a fucking torch. And there's weapons in the arena in case all of yours break. There's no tension of running out of items or breaking your shit. Everything the game has taught you is meaningless when you get to Calamity Ganon. Managing your weapon damage? Fuck does that mean? Royal Claymore for you. Magnesis? Never heard of that shit. Stasis? What are you, fucking gay? Bombs for different situations? I mean, if you run out of arrows, then maybe. How the fuck do you run out of arrows in this game? I've never had to buy arrows once. To be fair, most of the Ganon fights don't test what you've learned throughout the game, but they do give you the option to use what you've gathered throughout your adventure. Twilight Ganon, Fishing Rods, Wind Waker Ganon, test your combat abilities and your mastery of the parry system. Ocarina of Time Ganon, anything can harm him if you didn't get the Big Goron sword. Demise tested your mastery of the motion controls and taught you that you can't spam Skyward Strike. Majora's Mask was particularly interesting because the devs made it so that any form of Link can defeat her, making it a test of mastery with the form of your choice. Calamity Ganon is testing if you can hit the attack button. It is not testing your knowledge or mastery of anything. This criteria is not only made for final bosses, it can be used for regular bosses. Monsoon is a perfect example of a boss fight done right. Atmosphere on point, music orgasmic. Monsoon tests your blade bow mastery and your parry mastery. Monsoon as a regular boss fucking destroys the big bad boy of Breath of the Wild. That isn't fair, Jeremy. How about you compare it to a final boss of another series of games? Okay, I will. Zeus from God of War 3 had an entire saga of games building up to that pivotal moment. The world is in ruins. Kratos just lost what felt like a second daughter to him. Zeus is the only thing that he has left. The very fate of the world rests on this battle. As Kratos walks away, thinking the battle is done, the fear inside Zeus manifests as a Goliath and attempts to kill Kratos. Then you beat the shit out of him. As the music is blaring as if synced to every hit, you see how visibly scared Zeus is of Kratos, flipping the feeling of insignificance onto Zeus rather than the player. It gives the player the feeling of power needed to make this moment work. It's why it's fondly remembered. The journey of the Ghost of Sparta is one I'll get into later. Nintendo knows how to make a final boss. It's really shocking how the one game that decides not to look to Ocarina of Time for inspiration ironically misses one of the core aspects of Zelda, a good and fine final boss. And if it's not fun, what's the point? A final boss needs to be climactic, with exciting stakes and a feeling of insignificance. Well then, Jeremy, answer us this. What's the best final boss of all time? I'm glad you asked. Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club.